Dark chosen ones, these 7 energy traps are slowly draining your shadow power. Let me ask you something that will either wake you up or make you run. Why do you feel like there's a power inside you that never fully expresses itself? Why is it that no matter how much you heal, meditate, evolve, or awaken, there's still this suppressed, burning, untapped force inside you? You're not weak. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're caught in an invisible war that most people never even realize they're part of. And if you're here watching this, feeling this, it's because you are not ordinary. You're one of the dark chosen. And the truth is, the more potential you carry in your shadow, the more systems will be put in place to suppress it. These aren't random bad habits or simple mindset issues. These are energy traps, engineered frequencies designed to drain, delay, and domesticate your raw, unfiltered power. You see, the world doesn't fear your light. It fears your shadow light, the part of you that cannot be controlled, cannot be predicted, and cannot be normalized. Your rage when it's pure, your lust when it's sacred, your hunger when it's aligned, your grief when it's transmuted into wisdom. This is the power that changes timelines. This is the force that terrifies the Matrix. And this is why you were targeted before you were even born. Not by people, not by governments, but by ancient energetic structures woven into the very fabric of this dimension.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first energy trap is the guilt loop. It's subtle, seductive, and almost always disguised as morality. You feel a rush of power, maybe after a ritual, a breakthrough, a deep moment of clarity. But then a voice creeps in, whispering, "Who do you think you are to feel this powerful?" Or worse, "What if this power hurts someone?" And just like that, you shrink. You apologize to the world by dimming your aura. You trade your expansion for approval. Guilt is the leash that keeps chosen ones from running wild. It wraps itself around your throat, not to silence you completely, but to make your voice more palatable. And the saddest part, you think it's your conscience. But it's not. It's programming. A generational, cultural imprint designed to make power feel like a sin. Then there's the productivity cage. This one looks noble. It makes you feel like you're doing something meaningful, always working, always building, always pushing. But underneath it all is a frantic avoidance of stillness. Because in the stillness, your real self shows up. And that self isn't interested in hustle. That self is interested in mastery. This energy trap convinces you that if you're not producing, you're not valuable. So instead of becoming, you're constantly performing. Instead of embodying your frequency, you're optimizing it. The trap feeds off your need to prove yourself. It keeps you in motion so you never sit long enough to realize you were never meant to be efficient. You were meant to be inevitable. The third trap is the empathy drain. As a dark chosen one, you probably feel everything. You walk into a room and absorb the pain of people who don't even know themselves. You cry for strangers. You sense the grief of the land. And that's beautiful until it becomes your prison. This trap weaponizes your compassion. It convinces you that saving others is your purpose. And so, you bleed for causes that don't feed you. You sacrifice your energy for people who aren't asking to be saved. You become a martyr for frequencies that were never yours to heal. And the longer you stay in this trap, the more tired you become. not just physically, spiritually. Your shadow power isn't designed to rescue, it's designed to reveal. When you step into your true energy, you don't soothe people, you awaken them. And awakening is painful. So ask yourself, are you really helping people, or are you protecting them from the medicine of your truth? Next, we fall into the polarity addiction. This one is dangerous because it feels like truth. It convinces you that everything must be either high or low, light or dark, sacred or sinful. But you start to divide your life into dualities. And this split fractures your soul. You reject the parts of you that don't fit the narrative of your current phase. You call your sensuality a distraction. You label your anger as unhealed. You judge your ambition as ego. But here's the truth. Your shadow power lives in wholeness, not perfection. It's not about being high vibe or low vibe. It's about being real. When you're real, your frequency becomes untouchable. The trap of polarity keeps you fragmented. But your liberation begins when you stop choosing sides and start choosing integration. Let me ask you something very few dare to consider. What if the parts of you you've been trying to fix were never broken? What if your chaos is not a flaw, but a compass? What if the reason you've never fully healed is because your wounds aren't meant to disappear, they're meant to initiate you? These energy traps are not accidental. They are ancient mechanisms designed to keep you in a loop of becoming but never arriving. And the more you awaken, the more sophisticated these traps become. They adapt. They evolve. They disguise themselves through spiritual language, through success, even through love. But the core function is always the same: to drain your shadow power just enough to keep you docile, digestible, and depleted. The fifth trap is one that even the most advanced spiritual beings fall into: the identity fixation. You reach a level of awareness and you start to define yourself by it. I'm an empath. I'm a mystic. I'm a shadow worker. I'm a healer. At first, these labels help you feel seen. But over time, they become cages. You start to filter your choices through your identity. You stop evolving because who you are has become a brand. But your shadow power is wild. It doesn't care about your niche. It doesn't want to be explained, it wants to expand. So the moment you start protecting an identity, you stop embodying your full frequency. And this is the most painful trap of all, because it looks like authenticity, but it's actually performance. You're not here to be a role. You're here to be a force. So now we've unveiled 5 of the 7 energy traps. Each one is a thread in the web designed to hold you just below your full power. But we're not done yet. The last 2 traps are the most dangerous. They don't just drain your energy, they erase your memory of who you really are. The final veil: how 2 hidden traps erase your divine memory before you fully awaken. There's something that happens right before a dark chosen one fully reclaims their power. It's subtle, it's quiet, and it's deadly. You don't feel fear. You don't feel resistance. You feel tired, detached, like the fire that once blazed inside you has turned to ashes. And you tell yourself, maybe I've outgrown the intensity. Maybe I'm just evolving into peace. But deep down, you know something's off. That bone-deep knowing, the one that can't be silenced, is trying to warn you. Because right before your full awakening, the final veil descends. And it doesn't come to scare you. It comes to numb you. These last 2 energy traps are not designed to fight you. They're designed to make you forget who you are before you remember. The sixth trap is the neutrality sedation. But this one is terrifying because it feels like spiritual maturity. You've transcended the drama. You're not reactive. You're observing everything from a calm, centered distance. You're no longer triggered, no longer passionate, no longer driven by desire. And at first, it feels peaceful, like you've finally escaped the chaos of the world. But something is missing. You can't cry like you used to. You don't laugh with your whole body anymore. Art doesn't shake you. Music doesn't move you. You've become a monk in a world that was begging you to be a storm. You see, neutrality is not the same as numbness. And this trap doesn't lead you to enlightenment, it leads you to energetic sedation. You start to believe that being highly spiritual means being emotionally flat. But your shadow power doesn't live in neutrality. It lives in full spectrum embodiment. Your rage, your lust, your hunger, your heartbreak, these are not distractions. They are gateways. When transmuted, they become your magic, your magnetism, your medicine. This trap convinces you to detach from life in the name of peace. But the truth is, peace without passion is just spiritual apathy. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you felt wildly alive? Not just content, not just calm, but undeniably alive, like your soul was on fire in your chest. If you can't remember, you've already been sedated. And the most dangerous part, you probably thought it was growth. This is where many chosen ones are lost. They reach this plateau of emotional neutrality and they think they've arrived. But they haven't. They've been paused, put into a spiritual holding pattern. But they stop creating, stop risking, stop disrupting, because they confuse stillness with safety. But true safety comes from embodiment, not from avoidance. You didn't come here to hover above the world. You came here to transform it. And you can't transform what you refuse to feel. The seventh and final trap is the most insidious of all, the false light mirror. This is the trap that mimics awakening so perfectly, you don't see it coming. You begin to receive downloads. You have visions, synchronicities increase. You attract attention, followers, maybe even clients or students. You feel powerful. You feel chosen. But beneath it all, your soul starts to ache. Not because you're off path, but because you're being used. You see, the false light doesn't stop you from awakening. It mimics your awakening. It gives you a version of your purpose that looks divine but is rooted in codependence. It amplifies your gifts, but only if they serve the system. It allows you to shine, but only in ways that are marketable. It lets you speak truth, but only if that truth doesn't disrupt too much. As slowly, without realizing it, you start filtering your power through algorithms, audiences, and approval. You become a brand instead of a being. You start asking, will they understand me? Instead of, is this real? You start editing your frequency to fit a grid you came here to break. And the worst part, you think you're in your purpose. But it's not your purpose, it's your prison, dressed in gold. This is the final veil, a reality that looks like success, but feels like silence. You become a master of spiritual language, a curator of sacred aesthetics, a walking oracle, but inside your truth starts to rot. Not because you're fake, but because you've forgotten that your role is not to be admired. It's to awaken, and real awakening is messy. It's disruptive. It's unpredictable. It burns more than it blesses. But that's what makes it real. So here's the question that shatters illusions. Are you living your truth, or are you performing your purpose? Are you channeling your soul, or are you curating your image? If even 1% of you feels like it's all a little too scripted, then you know the answer. And that's okay, because awareness is your sword. The moment you see the trap, you become a threat to it. And right now, you're remembering. You're remembering that your shadow power was never about being seen, it was about being sovereign. That the universe didn't choose you to be perfect. It chose you to be impossible to manipulate. These final 2 traps don't just drain you, they erase your memory of mission. They make you forget that you came here with codes that don't fit into any system, not even the spiritual one. They make you question your edge, your depth, your wildness. But that is your gift. You are not here to ascend out of your humanity. You are here to awaken inside it. Now you've seen all 7 traps. They've been controlling your frequency in the background, rewriting your identity in real time. But now you hold the map. And in the next part, we'll go deep into the antidotes, the real, raw, practical ways to reclaim your shadow power and become the unshakable force you were born to be. The Shadow Reclamation Code, how to take back every ounce of power the energy traps stole from you. Now that you've seen the traps, the illusion begins to collapse. You start noticing how much of your life has been orchestrated to keep you small, tame, and confused. You see how the guilt kept you soft, how the productivity cage kept you spinning, how the false light mirror turned your soul into a brand. And if you're like me, at first, there's rage, not anger at anyone in particular, but a deep, primal scream from within the soul that says, enough. That scream is not weakness. That scream is your power waking up. That's the voice you silenced to be accepted. That's the roar you swallowed to stay safe. And now, it's time to let it out. Reclaiming your shadow power doesn't begin with rituals or mantras. It begins with permission. You have to give yourself permission to be who you actually are, not who you've been trained to be. That means letting go of the spiritual performance. That means letting yourself be messy, raw, contradictory. It means embracing the parts of you that don't fit the healer image. The parts that are angry, erotic, chaotic, hungry for more. Because here's the truth, your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your engine. If you cut yourself off from it, you cut yourself off from your true source of energy. Start with this question: where in my life am I being good at the expense of being true? That one question can crack open an entire false identity. Because most of us were taught that goodness means self-sacrifice. That to be spiritual, we must be endlessly patient, endlessly forgiving, endlessly available. But that's not power, that's programming. Real power doesn't apologize for its presence. It doesn't tone itself down so others are more comfortable. Real power walks into a room and reminds everyone who they are not by trying, but simply by being. So the first step in reclaiming your shadow is to stop compromising with your own truth. Stop negotiating your boundaries. Stop explaining your intuition. Stop translating your energy. If someone can't meet you in your frequency, that's not your burden to carry. That's their initiation to face. You are not here to be understood, you are here to be undeniable. The second step is embodiment. This is where most people get stuck. They know the language. They've done the healing. They've read the books, but they still feel disconnected. Why? Because nothing changes until it's in the body. Your body is not just flesh, it's your antenna. It holds memory, power, codes, and the traps you've been caught in. They didn't just live in your mind, they lived in your nervous system. So if you want to reclaim your power, you have to move it. Literally. Dance, shake, scream, breathe. Touch yourself with reverence. Feel your rage without trying to solve it. Feel your grief without trying to fix it. Let the body speak. Let it roar. Let it remember what it means to be alive. You don't need another affirmation. You need to embody the frequency you've been trying to manifest. And embodiment doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like dying, because parts of you are dying the false parts, the parts that were never yours to begin with. Third, you must reclaim your sovereignty over attention. This is one of the most stolen resources on earth. But your attention is your consciousness, and where your attention goes, your energy flows. The traps work because they hijack your attention. They get you obsessing over productivity, over social media, over relationships, over healing, over doing the work. But when was the last time you asked, what would happen if I just sat in silence with myself, truly listening, for more than 5 minutes? Most people are terrified of that silence, not because it's empty, but because it's full of raw truth, full of unfiltered knowing, and full of energy that's been buried beneath the noise. Your attention is your wand, pointed inward. Use it with intention. Choose where it goes. Don't let it be stolen by algorithms, by comparison, by distractions disguised as self-improvement. Reclaiming your power means reclaiming your focus. Now here's where it gets deeper. You're not just reclaiming your power for yourself. You're reclaiming it for your entire lineage, your ancestors, especially those who carried untapped magic, rage, sensuality, brilliance. They are watching. They are feeling you. And every time you say yes to your shadow, every time you choose truth over image, you're healing them. Not through pity, not through prayer, but through embodiment. You become the living proof that the curse ends here, but the silence ends here, that the shrinking ends with you. But don't stop there. The fourth key is to activate your creative destruction. Shadow power is not just about healing, it's about dismantling. It's about breaking systems that no longer serve. And sometimes that system is your own life, your job, your friendships, your routines, your beliefs. What needs to burn so you can rise? What are you clinging to out of habit, not truth? Destruction is not chaos, it's clarity in motion. A tree must lose its leaves before it can bloom again. And you must release what is not aligned, even if it once felt safe, even if it looks like success. Because success that costs your soul is just a prettier version of slavery. You are not here to survive in a system. You are here to create a new one with your frequency, your voice, your unapologetic presence. And that creation begins the moment you stop asking for permission. So what now? You've seen the traps. You've felt their grip. You've started to remember who you are. But remembering is not enough. You must live as if you never forgot. In the final part, we'll go beyond reclamation. We'll enter the realm of embodied mastery. We'll talk about what happens when your shadow is no longer a secret, but a signature. When your power is no longer hidden but holy. When you stop healing because you've started creating. The uncaged frequency living as a fully awakened dark chosen one in a world addicted to illusions. But once you've reclaimed your shadow power, the world doesn't magically applaud. In fact, it often resists. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you've become something uncontainable. You're no longer digestible. You're not easily labeled. People can't place you into their neat little boxes anymore. You're not the nice one, the helper, the light worker, or even the healer. You are a force, and forces don't beg for permission. They don't seek validation, they move. They shift reality. They disrupt the sleep of others. And that is exactly what you came here to do. Living as a fully awakened, dark, chosen one is not about being invincible, but it's about being integrated. Your light no longer fights your shadow. Your shadow no longer hides behind your light. They become one current, twisting, roaring, breathing through every word you speak and every space you enter. Your presence becomes a transmission. People feel you before you even open your mouth. Not because you're trying, but because you've stopped trying altogether. You've remembered who you are. But this level of embodiment comes with responsibility. Not to play small, not to be careful, not to protect others from your truth. Your responsibility is to stay awake even when the world tries to rock you back to sleep with comfort, applause, or fear. You must stay awake in your body, in your choices, in your energy. Because the moment you fall back into old patterns, the traps wait patiently, but they don't vanish. They evolve. They whisper in new voices. They offer shinier distractions. But once you've tasted your full frequency, there's no going back. You may pretend for a while, but your soul will always rebel. It will always call you forward. So how do you maintain this frequency in a world addicted to illusions? You anchor it. You build your life around your truth, not around convenience. That means your relationships, your work, your rituals, your environment, they must reflect the version of you that is uncaged. You stop entertaining vibrations that dilute you. You stop negotiating with energies that confuse you. You stop building futures with people who are still addicted to your past self. And most importantly, you stop explaining your path to those who prefer the illusion over the truth. You're not here to be understood. You're here to remind people of what they've forgotten. And when doubt comes, you meet it with stillness, not panic. You don't scramble to fix it. You don't rush to prove yourself. You listen. Because sometimes doubt is not a block, it's a doorway, or a test. A sacred pause before the next level of embodiment. Trust that your path is not linear. It spirals. It deepens. And every time you fall, you rise with more power because you rise with more truth. The awakened dark chosen one doesn't wait for the world to change. They become the change, not by preaching, but not by pleasing, but by living as a fully awakened frequency in a world that forgot what real power feels like. And that's why you're here, not to fix the world, but to remind it, not to save anyone, but to embody everything. And through your embodiment, others will remember. Not because you told them, but because your presence activated them. So let me ask you one final question, the kind of question that doesn't just inspire, but demands a decision. Are you going to spend the rest of your life managing your power? Or are you finally ready to unleash it? Because this world isn't waiting for another humble dreamer. It's waiting for a dangerously awake creator. And that creator is you.